Hello. Gate 44 in the fifth line is called manipulation. Structurally, it is a line of universalization. That is the quality that the fifth line has. And you'll remember that what the hexagram is truly about is shown in the first line, which is about conditions. And what society wants to see in this gate of alertness is manipulation. The fifth line can universalize in times of crisis. It can universalize by providing practical solutions. This is the line of the practical manipulator. They'll not bother to manipulate anything or anyone unless they must. It's the kind of personnel manager who will let an ego do whatever the hell it wants to do as long as the return is reasonable. It will not interfere. It will not try and control or manipulate the ego at all, because it will rely on its gift of alertness to recognize the right ego, and then it will let it do its thing. If there is a point in which the ego does not fulfill the promise that it committed to, that's the moment the fifth line can jump in and manipulate practically. What they usually tend to do in this case is fire the salesperson, because that's the most practical way forward. You know, it's tough to teach an old dog new tricks. It takes energy to get someone to see their mistakes and change their ways. And the 44 doesn't have the energy for that. But this is only so because we don't operate in an aware environment. The 44-5 who is not aware is always firing people. You know, if you're a 44-5 and you're not aware, you're always in a situation where you see that it's not practical to bother. You tried to give them their chance, you left them alone, but they couldn't hack it. And you're not going to babysit them, so you fire them. And of course, that's because the ones that you're taking in, the way in which you're being alert to them in the first place, is not according to your nature. And so you always end up firing them because you don't really get the right ones in the first place. If you're a 44 and a generator, for example, you can only get involved in anything once you've been asked and you're clear in your process, whether that's a pure response or if it's conditioned by emotional authority. Now, whatever your type, you always have a way to guarantee that how you enter in is correct. And then you will live out these aspects in your design properly. Again, it doesn't mean that you are removing these aspects of your design. It simply means that if you have the fifth line, then, you know, you smell, that first contact. When you take somebody in, then the chances are it will work for you more often than if you're not yourself. It means there are going to be less opportunities then for you to have to jump in times of crisis and fire people, which is going to save your energy, which as a 44-5 is a good thing. The fifth line is the finish of the hexagram process, the completion of what the hexagram is all about. Within the hexagram, you have the ability to universalize the process. In this sense, the 44-26 represents the immune system of the tribe. It is the defense system of the tribe. It's what keeps the tribe healthy. You know, it's material. It's the money. It's all about the money. Follow the money in the 44-26. And the material reality, you know, in this fifth line, it literally represents what that is all about. What is going to keep the tribe immune from disease, immune from failure at the material level, immune from extinction? The 32nd gate was the fear of failure. The 44 is the fear of the past, that fear of special extinction. And they're trying to overcome those fears through having material success in the present. In the exaltation, we have the ability to transform interaction with inferior elements into the energizing of progressive process, with the additional benefit that in tapping the inferior elements, they remain weak, where the instinctive recognition of the pattern leads to the possible manipulation of others. And it is a progressive process, and they remain weak in the sense that the ego doesn't get a chance to break free, to establish its own work-rest program, because that's the moment then that everything gets ruined. The ego must be allowed to establish its work-rest ratio. You cannot have everyone climbing the ladder of the hierarchy. It doesn't work. And at the same time, inferior elements, they're part of the tribe. They need to have their sustenance, they need to be protected, and they need to have a sense of self-worth within the community. The gift of this sort of manipulation is to integrate these forces into the operation and allow them to have their place by making them comfortable through the manipulating style of the personnel manager. And at the same time, have them be satisfied that they're going to spend 55 years putting bolts into the side of a car or something. I mean, it's essential on this planet. We have all of these systems, all of these integrated systems. If we didn't have them, things would fall apart. In the detriment, the tendency in this form of manipulation to become abusive and degenerate to their level. The possibility that the instinctive recognition of the patterns could lead to the abuse of others. So this is the firing thing, this is the fifth line's jumping in, but before they fire, they humiliate. They take that ego out and humiliate it. So what you see here at the business level is actually what goes on in the social level, very often in our communities through the 3740. And it's much more difficult on that side because it's not a relationship between awareness and the ego, but a relationship between the emotional wave and the ego, and it's much less clear. It is when emotionality clouds the ego that it is unable to accept the proper manipulation that is necessary for success. And it is the ego that always makes these situations difficult because the ego in its and of itself as a center is unaware. We need healthy egos because they enter into their life correctly, getting their work-rest ratio correct, and then they're operating in the world correctly, bringing that incredible willpower that they have for the benefit of everyone else, even while they're benefiting themselves. If this doesn't happen, there are always problems. The detriment shows us the dictatorial need for control in the 32nd gate, because here in the detriment of the fifth line of the 44, we see the power trip. I have the power and you don't. Do what you're told. It can be very abusive. Without a proper hierarchy, there is no success. If you're working for a company and you're getting well paid relative to what you do, you don't mind that the CEO is taking home a couple of $1 million. It's astonishing how many people find it normal that their boss is making huge amounts of money while they slave away for 48 hours a week. However, it's become natural. It's become our way. We are animals, and animals are hierarchical. No matter how sophisticated we look on the surface, everything is about hierarchy, and that won't go away. The thing is not to see that as moral or as a prejudice. We have to see that everybody has a place in that way when we have the hierarchy. As long as everybody is in the place that is correct for them, then there's no hard feelings and everybody will be fine. But if there is that sense that people are not correct, either within themselves or the people above them are not being correct, then there will be that potential for abuse within the hierarchical system. And then things are very far from being fine. So the grounding comes through confession. This is the 24th gate in the fifth line. It is the courage to admit the mistakes of the past. Perhaps firing the best person for the job wasn't the most practical solution at the end of the day. It's not always easy to hold your hand up and admit that you've made a mistake, especially when your reputation is on the line and you may get bashed for your trouble. And yet sometimes confession is exactly what is called for. The moon is still in gate 34. It's been there since 5:34 this morning. It moves into gate 9 at 16:35 and then into gate 5 at 01:14. These are both sacral gates. The 9 is the gate of focus, pointing down to the root, and it's harmonic, the gate 52. And the 5 is pointing up to the G center, and it's harmonic, gate 15. Both the 9 and the 5 are in the logical collective circuit. The 9 is part of the format channel for logic circuitry. So it's also known as the understanding circuit, the logic circuit. It's a circuit that can be very critical. It's very corrective. It has the 1858 within it, the channel of correction, the channel of judgment. And it is a circuit that is looking for mastery through correction and through repetition. So tomorrow we get to the 6th line. We're at the top of the process. We are about to leave the quarter of duality and move into mutation. And yeah, that's tomorrow. That's the 6th line. Until then, enjoy line 5, and I will see you tomorrow. Go gently. Bye-bye.